Joe.
Hello and happy Passover, everyone. I made an oopsie, as you can see. I meant to click on the intro and I accidentally clicked on a different clip. But we're going to go move past that because it is fun with flags today. And this time,
Can I just interject real quick? I thought it worked. I thought you did that on purpose.
No. My mouse slipped. I promise you. If I did that on purpose, I would have let the whole clip play. But yeah, so moving away from that goof, this is Fun with Flags, and it's my turn to host, which explains why so many goofs right before we even introduce the topic. So before we get down to that, Mr. Soda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all good. For full disclosure, we're recording this on Easter Sunday morning, so happy Easter to everyone out there. I'm a little emotionally wrecked just because while I was waiting for things to happen, I told 50 this, I was watching a Miss Mojo list of the top 20 saddest moments from Big Bang Theory, and I was ugly crying. So it means I should probably go back and rewatch the show. So that's where I'm at emotionally right now.
What a great way to spend your
Mrs. Wolowitz's death so many times.
Oh yeah, but what a great way to spend your holiday time. Meanwhile,
I did watch the show when it was hot. I got done about season 5 or 6 because I guess it just got worn out. But yeah, just to see that list and to realize that there's so many good moments that I've heard about that I've missed. It's like, yeah, I think it's time I go back and actually finish it.
I don't know how you got worn out. I think that show is consistently good all throughout its 45 seasons, however long it's been.
12. But you know what? I'm in the same place with things like Star Wars and all that shit right now. There's so much I get burnt out. And at that time, over here, you couldn't turn anywhere, especially like when you're living in big cities. You could go anywhere and not see the Big Bang Theory. So I guess it's just because I got overwhelmed and it just was too much. Like I said, same thing's happening with me with Star Wars and DC and Marvel right now.
Yeah, well, the best thing about being a fan is that you can always go back and catch up on the things you got burned out on.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, over on our side, we just had the big Passover Seder night, the big Passover celebration, and we had a miracle, Mr. Soda, a Passover miracle. Would you believe?
No bloodshed?
Well, not going to get political, but that's not that kind of miracle.
Okay, what happened?
So we did Seder over at my grandparents' house. It was me and my mom were tasked to bringing the majority of the food, and my uncle was my mom's brother was tasked with bringing the other half of the food plus the drinks, most of the drinks. And he forgot the drinks. We had no drinks for the Passover celebration, but what we had to rely on was this one teensy measly bottle of Coca-Cola. Not this one, obviously, because I'm just using it as a reference. So we had this one singular bottle of Coca-Cola that just randomly was in my granddad's home. But this one single bottle of Coca-Cola lasted the entire night. Like it managed to work for 7 people for the entire night without running out before the feast was over.
My God, it's almost like when Jesus turned water into wine.
Yeah, that's exactly what a friend of mine said when I told her about it. I said it's like the miracle of the single bottle of Coke that lasted for 7 people. Wrong holiday, obviously, but it works.
Yeah, the never-ending bottle.
Yeah, it was like the little jug of oil for Hanukkah, but for Passover with cola. So
we'll take it.
Anyway, speaking of Passover, as you probably may have guessed, we are still technically celebrating Passover over on this side of the world, even though the Seder is over. Passover is like 2 weeks. So
it was 1 week.
I mean, time off from school is 2 weeks, and the time you're supposed to eat these is about 2 weeks, if not more. But yeah, generally speaking, we celebrate 1 week, and then there's like a secondary holiday that's sort of been adjusted as part of Passover um, over the years. Called
Gotcha.
the
The
It's called
Passover wrap up.
What? What'd you say?
Passover wrap up.
No, it's more like a secondary holiday. It's called the Mimuna, which we're not talking about today, but
Good, because I've never heard of it.
yeah, it's more of it came from the Moroccan side of Jews that brought some of their culture from Arab nations into Israel when they acclimatized and adjusted into the Israeli culture. There's a lot that can be said about that holiday, but that is not technically what we're talking about today. We're talking about the general idea of Passover. Now, before we move on, how much do you know of Passover as a Catholic Christian yourself? You probably know a lot about Passover. What is it you know?
I know the broad strokes. Like clearly, I know it comes. If I'm not mistaken, doesn't it come from the whole Moses plagues where they painted lamb's blood on the door so that way the mist would pass over and not take their children? Or is that
It was part of it.
okay? Because that I remember from the Rugrats special. That, honestly, that is actually all I remember. Outside of it, it's like it's a major holiday for the Jewish people. That's really all I can remember right now.
Arguably the most important holiday, possibly why it's so long, why it's 2 weeks.
Yeah,
But
it's an important one in your history.
yeah, so I mean, kind of the origin of how we became a nation in a way.
Mm.
We talked about the kingdom of Israel with King Saul, King David, all that. That's like 1,000 years or so after.
Yeah.
Now, as for the Passover tradition, right? Sorry. As for the Passover historical history itself, have you seen the movie Prince of Egypt any lately?
Yeah, about 2-3 times. Yeah.
I watch it every year on Passover. It's like a Passover tradition for me.
I'd say I've seen Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments more, but even that's been a long time since I've seen that.
Well, that's basically the, as you said, the broad strokes.
Yeah.
So, full disclosure, I will be talking a lot about historical events and, most importantly, biblical events.
Was not expecting anything less on it.
Yeah, and this is really the part that might upset some people. We are talking about this as a story, as a mythological Jewish tale. Some of these events, and I'm going to say this once, did not happen.
Mm.
There's really, I'm not, just like Purim, we talked about Purim a couple of weeks ago. There's no concrete evidence to some of these events, and some of the other events are highly contradicted when you compare it to some other cultures from around that time in that area.
Yeah, and
So,
I do want to add on to that caveat. If anybody here watching is religious, don't get offended. You got to understand a lot of these are oral traditions that have been passed down through the decades before they were written down. So some shit got lost in translation. Not all of it is real. Not all of it actually can be historically proven. So please just be calm. We're literally just telling the story. We're not going to get facts. We're just telling the story.
Yeah, and especially because certain people in power got to decide what was written at the time. But
exactly. Same thing happened with Catholicism. Remember that, folks.
Same thing happens today. But we're not going to get political on this show. What?
Said hello, Florida.
Yeah, but like I said, we're not going to get political on the show. So starting us off, we sort of have to start with the story of Abraham. Are you familiar with Abraham?
Yes, yeah, I'm familiar with Abraham the prophet. Lived to several hundred years old,
allegedly.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar. Again, you do have to remember though, it has been a while since I was regularly taught these stories. Like we're looking at over 20 years. So
I'm just looking at what you do know.
Yeah, but yes, just remember, like I remember a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah. So obviously, Abraham famously married Sarah.
Yeah.
They had a child called Isaac. Who? Hold on, give me just a second. who then married Rebecca. They had a son called Jacob, and Ishmael, which that's a whole story in it for another time.
Oh yeah.
Married two women, Rahel or Rachel. We'll just call her Rachel because it's easier in English, and Leah, and their descendants. They had 12 descendants, which then obviously they were evolved into 10 to 12 tribes, which became the tribes of Israel, which then migrated to Egypt, where they were kept as slaves by the Egyptians. And after around 400 years of being slaves of Egypt, which again, no real concrete evidence that ever happened. You know, the Egyptians were very famous for depicting everything that happened, writing, literally drawing it on the walls. Not a lot of really historical evidence to that. Allegedly, according to the biblical story, the people of Israel were the ones who built the pyramids. Historically speaking, if you actually look at the dates of when certain things were written according to the Bible and the biblical calendar, which is still being used today, the pyramids have already existed about 1,000 years or so before the people of Israel.
Like everyone's familiar, or at least understands that it's Ramses who's the pharaoh in Moses' story, but it's actually never mentioned in the Bible. It's left pretty vague.
Yeah, that's just the understanding that it was Ramesses.
Assumption.
What the real pharaoh, by the way? Just you know.
Oh yeah, no, Ramses was the real pharaoh and stuff. That it's just because it's not mentioned in this supposedly accurate tome. It's a lot of people have had to come to their own conclusions over the years.
Yeah, I guess Ramesses was just a stand-in name that they needed.
Yeah,
he was a particularly cruel pharaoh that they wanted to put the blame on. I don't know. No one really does know for sure. Now, after about 400 years of being slaves, and again, certain biblical texts claim that they were building the pyramids at the time. That is contradicted on two accounts. The first of which being that the Egyptians actually dated the date of when the pyramids were built, which if you actually do the math, it's about 1,000 or 2,000 years before the arrival of the people of Israel. And the other account is the fact that the Egyptians respected the pyramids to such a monumental degree. Remember, this is where the pharaoh is to be buried.
Mm-hmm.
The pharaoh is like a messenger of the god, a literal god walking among them. They would not leave his tomb, his most illustrious place of burial, the pyramids, to be built by slaves.
I was going to say, in some cases, they thought they were gods.
Well, I mean, yes, to them. That's really what I was aiming for. But yeah, they would not leave the construction of such a monumental building to slaves. They had their own construction people to do that. What is actually commonly speculated nowadays is that the people of Israel, which weren't going by the name Jews just yet, if you remember previous stories of this, previous episodes of this show, they just provided the working materials, the materials to build certain buildings, mainly houses and certain shrines.
The 21st century, they were the vendors.
Yeah, pretty much. So at some point came the rule of Pharaoh Seti.
Stay on target.
Sorry, my bad.
I am Sutek the Destroyer. Where I tread, I leave nothing but dust and darkness. I find that good.
So this would be Seti the First.
I think it was Seti the Second.
Okay.
But yeah, as seen as the clip was alluded to, yeah, Seti, not Sutek. But it was great to have a Doctor Who reference in this episode after all. So yeah, Seti noticed that the Hebrews, as they were called at the time, were becoming far too great in number, and he feared that one day they will rise up against the Egyptians and will outnumber the Egyptians, because Jews have a tendency to overpopulate, if you know what I mean.
And I thought Catholics were bad.
Oh, trust me. Trust me. Again, not getting too political, but the ones that do that the most are the Muslims. But we'll get to that story.
Is sacred. You ever heard that song from Monty Python?
No.
It's from Monty Python and the Meaning of Life. One of the first sketches is about birth control, and the caption is called "Every Sperm is Sacred." And you have to watch it. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's probably why I didn't recognize it, because I did not like that movie.
Yeah, me neither. There's only a couple bits in there from that I enjoy, and that's one of them.
Okay. So,
Stay on target. We're too close. Stay on target.
Yes, sir.
yeah. So, Pharaoh Seti decided that he decreed a law that all the males of every Hebrew family are to be taken from their families and tossed into the Nile River to be eaten by the many beasts.
I thought it was firstborns, or am I just confusing that with the biblical plagues?
That's later in the story. All the males. He wanted.
Okay.
He was like, okay, keep the females, kill all the males, and obviously it didn't stick that way. It stayed around for a couple of years until he allowed them to breed again, just so he wouldn't lose the majority of his workforce.
Until they realized, oh shit, we need men.
Yeah, we need men. Like he wanted to kill all the men because he feared that the men would be strong enough to rise up against him. He didn't fear the women because pharaohs, women are nothing. Historical rulers, women mean nothing to them. Anyways, so one woman, Yocheved, who already had 2 children, Aaron and Miriam.
Yep, I know those names.
Yeah, she had a 3rd child, a son, which she did not get to name because of the whole decree that all the male newborns are to be tossed in the river. So what she did, she built him a small, tiny ark, and let him drift along the Nile River.
And then that little baby was raised by Ma and Pa Kent and grew up to be Superman. Oh shit, wrong myth.
Yeah, wrong religious myth. So, anyways, after doing the most horrible act that a mother can do, letting her child go free, she instructed her daughter Miriam to look after the ark and see where it goes. The ark eventually drifted into the palace of Pharaoh, where the daughter of Pharaoh found the ark and found the child hidden inside, and decided to take the child into her own custody, naming him, according to the Bible, Moshe. The name. Wait. I'm building to something. The name Moshe allegedly comes from the word limshot, as in she pulled him out of the water. Pulling out of the water, that is where allegedly that name came from. Now,
I think I might have heard that before. Something like Moses means from the reeds,
or rather, the Hebrew name of Moses comes from the Hebrew word of pulling something out of a place.
Yeah, that sounds like I might have heard that before. I do a lot of rabbit hole deep diving into this stuff sometimes,
and only retain some of the details apparently.
Well, I'm a stoner. What do you expect?
Yeah, come on. But yeah, so also the name Moshe spelled backwards in Hebrew is Hashem, which is the name given to God, because as we all know, God doesn't like it when you say his real name, so you have to say Hashem instead of
Jehovah.
I had no idea that's what that was backwards. Huh.
Yeah, but again, Jewish propaganda aside, and people in power deciding what is actually written, if you actually look into actual historical documents, it doesn't really make. Let me ask you: does it really make sense that the daughter of the Pharaoh, the daughter of the ruler of Egypt, who decreed that all the Hebrews would have their newborns tossed in the river, does that make sense that she would name this child that she now found, who she believed was a gift from the gods, would she name that child in the language of the slaves?
No, I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, always bothered me too, until I actually did some research on the whole matter. Turns out she actually did in fact name the child, if such an event actually really did happen, that she actually really named the child Moses, which in ancient Hebrew and in ancient Egyptian means the son of, because it was mostly common for Egyptian parents to name their children after certain gods, which literally means Moses. Ramesses, the son of Ra.
So Ses is son of?
No, Moses.
No, but I mean, because we got Moses, we got Ramses. So is the Ses part of the name the son of?
I was explaining while you interrupted me. So Rameses, the son of Ra, Thothmoses, the son of Thoth, Ankh-Moses, the son of Ankh, and so on and so forth. Moses, literally translated in ancient Egyptian to the son of, but because she did not know which god was specifically the one that gave her this child, she just named him Moses, as in the son of, meaning the son of the gods.
The son of Mo. Hey, Mo! Sorry. I'm going to hell.
I forgot to switch off the loop again. Anyway, so this kid Moses, or we'll just call him Moses for easiness' sake. She called him Moses. He grows up in the palace alongside Ramesses II, allegedly. And when he comes of age, he learns of the existence of his sister and his brother, or rather, two people who tell him that they are his siblings. Where he starts.
Sorry, forgive me. Doesn't he like run into them at some point? And that's when they tell him, yeah.
He runs into them. They tell him the story. A couple of days later, he notices one of the Egyptian slave owners beating up one of the slaves mercilessly without stopping, and so he decides to stand up for the slave, beating the Egyptian slaver to death. Essentially, we're realizing that he just did the unthinkable. He killed an Egyptian to spare the life of a Hebrew slave. So he ran away from Egypt, leaving the whole world behind. Eventually meeting the daughter of Jethro, a leader of the Midianians, which eventually became the Druze, which probably story for another day. But yeah, he met the daughter of Jethro, Tzipporah. They got married, and he became a shepherd.
Yeah, and this is when he runs into the burning bush.
Yeah, you telling the story, or am I?
I'm sorry. I'm just happy I know shit.
I know. I just hate to be interrupted.
Anyway, it's a bad habit I have. I know.
It's a bad habit of mine, that disliking being interrupted. It's my fault. You're just excited to hear about the story. I know, I get it, but it's me. So while he's out shepherding the shepherd, one of the sheep runs away from him, so he goes chasing after it, where he encounters a burning bush that is clearly on fire, but does not get burned at all. So he approaches the burning bush cautiously, where he allegedly hears the voice of God telling him that he must go back to Egypt and let the people let the Hebrew go. Where initially he's dismissive of the idea, not because he doesn't believe that the burning bush is the voice of God, but more so he does not believe himself to be worthy of such a task. He says, "Why would you choose me? Why me of all people?" And God is pretty much, as he usually tends to be, he's determined that this will be Moses who forms the act. So he goes back to Egypt. He talks to his former brother, Ramesses II. He threatens to hit Egypt with the power of God.
First plague.
Yeah, not yet. He threatens to unleash the power of God if Ramesses does not let his people go, where he performs a ritual in which he turns his shepherding staff into a snake.
Mm-hmm.
The Pharaoh Ramesses then summons his great priest, who then perform the same exact act of turning sticks into snakes. However, they are unsuccessful in turning the sticks back into snakes, while Moses himself is able to quickly return the snake back into a staff because he controls the power of God, or at least
the Heston movie.
Yeah, he's allowed to have the power of God. So when Ramesses himself is not impressed by the whole affair, instead chooses to make the job of the Hebrews even harder, meaning that rather than being given the materials to build the temples, again, according to the biblical story, they built the temples, even though historical accounts say they didn't. But rather than being given the materials to build the pyramids themselves, they will now be forced to make the materials themselves, which obviously angered the people of Israel. Angered the Hebrews even further, which then led God, by way of Moses, to unleash the 10 plagues of Egypt. The first plague. What?
I was gonna say, let me guess. This isn't the first plague locusts.
No.
No shit. Okay, never mind. I won't remember the order.
Okay, so plague number 1, he turned the Nile and all drinking water for the people of Egypt into blood.
Yeah.
Now, as you can see in this picture, again, this is just a depiction, but for any of the Hebrews, the blood turned back into water as soon as they approached it. So only the
I didn't say anything, but I was gonna say that's actually something I don't recall hearing.
Yeah, I mean, different accounts say different things, but yeah, for all the Hebrews, their drinking water was perfectly normal. They did not have to drink blood. It was only the Egyptians who were forced to suffer from this plague. Now, the second plague, which obviously after the first plague, Pharaoh did not yield. He did not still believe
Naturally.
in God's conviction. So God gave him his second plague, frogs. Now, I'm really honest. What?
I love the picture.
Yeah, me too. I love I found it. But yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know the English name for some of these plagues, so I'm just going to say the Hebrew names just to save time.
Here, I'll put it on Wikipedia.
Yeah, so yeah, the frogs just came crawling out of the Nile and flooded and roam around all of Egypt. The third plague, lice. Basically, I mean, it is what it is. The people of Egypt were infected with a plague of lice from their hairs to the rest of their body and all over.
Yeah, so I'm just looking up on. They don't actually have a proper name. It's just first plague is water turned to blood. Second plague, plague of frogs. Third plague, so on. Doesn't actually have a proper name.
Well, to us, as you can see in this picture, each of the plagues has its own name. So that's really where I'm going with.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
the fourth plague, which in the Hebrew version is called Arov, basically it was lots of hungry and carnivorous animals invading the land of Egypt and devouring the people of Egypt. Meaning lions, tigers, wolves, bears, and all. Actually, I don't think bears were part of it, but yeah,
this was a plague of flies.
The what?
So according to where I'm looking, it's the plague of flies.
As in actual flies?
As in actual flies. Yeah, after the Pharaoh refused again to let God's people go free, God sent a plague of flies throughout Egypt. The whole of Egypt were overrun by these pesky winged insects, except for the land of Goshen, as this is where the Israelites lived.
Again, different accounts say different things. I think it'll be easier if we just stick to the propaganda that is given to the Hebrews instead of actual Wikipedia, where the facts actually live.
I'm going to try to see what it says in my Bible.
Okay, I mean, I'm doing this for you and just get up in the middle of the thing, but okay, so the fifth plague in Hebrew is called Dever, which caused a lot of the cattle and the oxen and the sheep in the land of Egypt to die, and therefore deprived the Egyptians of their meat and other useful products that they used on their fields. Now, as you can see in this picture, you also see kind of the continuation of it with the sixth plague, which in Hebrew is called Shchin, which basically it's just a
boil,
like pox or the bubonic plague of sorts. Basically
over here in Western civilization, it's referred to the plague of boils.
Yeah, boils. Yeah, that's another good name for it. But boils all over their body. The seventh plague is the plague of hail. At least that's what it is in the Hebrew side of it. Basically, giant balls of fire falling down from the sky and destroying houses, temples, and other structures. The eighth plague, as you mentioned previously, is the plague of locusts.
Yeah.
Which ate all crops and plants all over the land of Egypt. The ninth plague is the plague of darkness, which covered the entire kingdom of Egypt in darkness except for the areas inhabited by the Hebrews. And at this point, Moses begins conversing with his brother, his former brother Ramesses II, saying that something even worse is yet to come. But the Pharaoh once again refuses to yield, which then forces his hand to ask God for the 10th and final plague, the plague of the firstborns, where all the firstborn sons and daughters of Egypt were killed allegedly by the hand of God. Now, as part of the plague, God used Moses as his messenger once again, and told the Hebrews to slaughter a lamb and with its blood paint the tops and the sides of the doors up to their houses, which was then later named the mezuzahs, with the blood of the lamb, so that the hand of God would know that this is where the Hebrews lived, and therefore would literally pass over them, yifsach, over their houses, and therefore their families and their firstborns will be spared from the plague.
The lamb's blood, and that's basically This is the part that always stuck out to me from the Rugrats thing. I did find the biblical verse about the plague of flies. So this is from Exodus chapter 8, book 8, verse 21. Else, if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarm of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground whereon they are. So according to this Bible, it's also flies.
So according to the Hebrew Bible, written in Hebrew, it's ravenous animals. Go figure. I guess, I don't know. Well, naturally, you would assume the Hebrew version came first.
Totally.
Someone translated it into flies for whatever reason. But we're not really here to follow what was lost in translation. We're just here to talk about the story as I've been taught it.
Yeah.
So, according to historical and archaeological accounts of the use of the lamb itself was as a way to mock the Egyptians even further, because as you probably know, the Egyptians did believe in gods of various different shapes, the majority of which used the faces of animals, the lamb being one of them. So the Hebrews using a lamb, slaughtering a lamb as part of their final plague is just another way of mocking the Egyptians even further. According to some accounts, again, it's been so long now that no one really knows what actually happened.
Like I said earlier, you got to remember a lot of this wasn't written down till hundreds of years, or if not thousands of years after the fact. So shit will have gotten lost in translation at some point. Clearly, telephone here, folks.
Yeah, and once again, after this, Moses once again for the final time went back to his brother and said,
"Let my people go."
Sorry, before we continue, fun fact that I didn't notice until recently about that movie and about this part. You know when they showed like the sky shot after Pharaoh's son dies, you can actually see his spirit ascend. If you look at that wide shot where you see like all the skies and stuff after all the kids die, you see like these white things floating up to the air. That's the spirits of the dead children.
Okay, I'll have to rewatch it. I mean, whenever that moment happens, I always just focus on the arrow of the north.
I never noticed it either until I saw it pointed out online.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Again, unfortunately, I haven't had the time yet to do my Passover tradition and watch that movie, but I will do it eventually at some point this week, hopefully. But yeah, once losing his firstborn, Pharaoh Ramesses finally caves and decides to let the people of Moses go. He lets them gather their things and leave, finally. But according to some biblical traditions, they did not have the time to properly bake the bread for the journey, so they had to rely on something that was a lot faster, matzahs, which is where the matzahs came from, and why the tradition of the holiday itself involves eating nothing but matzahs and getting rid of anything that even resembles bread in your house or anywhere in a workplace of sorts. Now, after several days of trekking through the Egyptian desert, the people of Israel finally reach the Red Sea, which is a relocation between the Sinai Peninsula and what is modern day Eilat, the Israeli city, where they are being sieged once again by the Egyptians, who refuse to give up on their slaves. Ramesses, as seen in the movie, refuses to be the weak link that brings the entire empire down. He refuses to lose to what he calls a foreign pagan god. So he charges with his soldiers at the people of Israel, the Israelites, the Hebrews, whichever way you want to call it. And so Moses, once again, using the power of God, creates one further miracle.
Unbelievable. Now let's go!
Ben would be proud of you, you crafty son of a bitch. I was like, did he hit the wrong clip again? And I saw the roars. I'm like, no.
Yeah, did you know that Simba's son can do that?
Apparently.
It's canon. It's part of the Lion King lore now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So after opening the Red Sea, literally splitting the Red Sea in two, Moses then led his people through what was once the Red Sea all the way to the other side. At which point the Egyptians began to follow, or rather chase after them, which is where God, realizing that the Egyptians cannot be reasoned with anymore, he gave them a chance, one final chance.
Yep.
He basically did this.
They cannot get away that easy.
Easy?
Come on! Get them! Get them!
Here they come. Not for long.
That is not good.
That might be your best roar ever.
Yeah, we're gonna have to watch out for copyright strikes.
Yeah, probably.
I was watching that during the thing. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna have to pay attention. Yeah, basically he went full tenant on that. It's like, you got one chance. All right, and closes the sea and drowns all of them.
Yeah, I love your reference, the full tenant.
Well, it wasn't until you said, I'm going to give you one chance. I was like, oh, tenant.
No second chances. I'm that sort of a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the Red Sea was a lot larger than this small body of water that you just witnessed, and so the entire Egyptian army drowned to death, which then led to Moses leading the Israelites, or rather the Hebrews, through what?
Question, sorry. I do have one question that I've never quite known. Did Pharaoh drown as well?
Honestly, I was led to believe that he does.
Not something that's ever mentioned in historical antiquities, and I don't recall. I think it's to me, it comes off as vague in all the movies. I don't know.
I think because it's movies, they want to dramatize it a little bit and keep him alive, especially in the animated one where brother versus brother element. Yeah. So, but I was led to believe that he does die.
Okay.
And I've watched several other movie depictions of the event, and in some of those, the Pharaoh does drown with the rest of them. Now, following this, Moses continues to lead his people through the desert, where he eventually reaches Mount Sinai, a mountain that does not exist in real life. Just wanted to point that out. But yeah, he climbs the mountain and stays there for a couple of days to allegedly receive the laws from God itself. Now, during that time, the Hebrews began very wary of the whole idea. They began resenting Moses for essentially abandoning them below. They start believing in other people down below on the land. Some of them refuse. Some of them begin to believe that he will never actually come back. Some of them even begin to believe in a golden calf, which potentially is left over from some of the traditions that they picked up during their time in Egypt. And so eventually, while Moses comes back, he comes back with a present from God himself.
The Lord Jehovah has given unto you these 15 10 commandments for all to obey.
One of my favorite jokes ever committed to film. 2, I was literally just looking for that.
Great minds do think alike.
Yeah, I love that. 15, 10, 10.
No, I just love the 10 commandments.
Yeah, God bless Mel Brooks.
Yeah,
Still get to see History of the World Part 2 though.
me too. But funny thing is, if you actually look at that clip, it actually does have the actual commandments engraved on the prop.
It looks like he's wearing the same outfit as Heston.
I mean, maybe it's a reference to that. I don't know. But I mean, that is generally accepted as what Moses wore during the whole affair. I mean, look, even in the animated version, look at this.
Let my people go!
Yeah, pretty much.
Voiced by the great Val Kilmer, who also voiced the voice of God in that movie.
Yeah, and the voice of Ramesses was Voldemort himself, Ray Fiennes. Yeah, and Seti was the great Patrick Stewart. I mean, we can sit here all day just talking about how great that movie is.
Yeah, watched that forever.
Yeah, Ofra Haza, may she rest in peace. Anyway, so the actual 10 commandments themselves were 10. Oh, I actually did not check how this looked, but I mean, you can pretty much see what it is, right?
Yeah, I can see what it means in Hebrew.
Yeah, so I did not mean for it to be transparent, but we'll work with what we have. So these are the actual 10 commandments. The 5 on the right primarily mean spiritual, metaphysical stuff like respect, primarily towards God himself.
Do you want me to write them down in English? Because I do know these.
But I went to the trouble of actually searching for the thing on another tab.
Never mind. Keep going.
But yeah, the ones on the left are basically more physical things. The 5 on the right is between man and God, and the 5 on the left is basically between a man and his neighbor or his friend. And basically meaning the first one is basically it's just I am God who led you from Egypt. Basically meaning always believe in God without question.
You shall have all gods before me.
That is the second one, actually.
Oh, really?
That's why I went to the trouble of searching it for myself.
Yeah. No worries. Wow. Okay, these people have got the list wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
The second one is you will not have another god besides me. You will not do a statue or a image. Basically, meaning you will not worship other gods, which
means the Republicans of the United States are screwed.
But unless they're Jewish, unless they're not Jewish. But yeah, I was gonna bring up the fact that some Jews still do that today and consider it okay. But you know what? Fuck them. Anyway, so the third one is you shall not say the Lord's name in vain, because as we discussed in previous episodes, God does not like it when people say his real name.
Jehovah! I'm warning you, if you say Jehovah once more, right, who's through that?
And the fourth one is always remember the Sabbath, rather Saturday. Saturday is a holy day. Always do not work on a Saturday is basically what it means. The fifth commandment says always respect your mother and your father, which, of course, because some people have to be like that, some people took it as always respect God, because God is your father. Again, some people just want religious propaganda to be what it is. I'm not going to get into that. The fifth one is thou shalt not murder. The seventh one is thou shalt not cheat on your wife. And again, some people say that you don't cheat on God, on what I don't have another God. I'm not going to get into that. The eighth one is do not steal, do not rob. The ninth one is do not lie.
Or the translation, thou shalt not bear false witness.
Yeah, which again, certain religious people, that's their bread and butter these days, but I'm not going to get into that. And the 10th one is thou shalt not covet
A neighbor's wife.
a neighbor. Some people say a neighbor's wife. Some people claim that it's your friend's possession.
Basically, don't put your tool on someone else's shed.
Yeah, but I was going to use that as a reference to the fact that some people consider a person's wife as his property. Again, religious stuff, very unkind to women.
Okay,
which is
so, have you ever heard of the comedian George Carlin?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember where.
You ever seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Yes.
Rufus.
It's been very long. It's been
Rufus, the guy who gives them the TARDIS. So he was a comedian, didn't hold anything back. One of my favorite bits of his was about the 10 Commandments, because he grew up Catholic and all that stuff. And in this bit, he says that some of them are redundant because they cover the same thing. So he actually manages to cut it down to 2. And so this is his revived 10 Commandments. First, or the 2 Commandments. Thou shalt always be honest and faithful, especially to the provider of thy nookie. And second, thou shalt try real hard not to kill anyone, unless, of course, they pray to a different invisible man than the one you pray to.
And that's all she wrote, folks. So yeah, after coming back from the non-existent Mount Sinai, and Moses sees the golden calf, after coming back with the laws that God has decreed to the people, and see people bring a different deity all of a sudden. Did I freeze for a second?
No, you're here. You're good.
I saw a sort of internet sign at the top saying that.
You were good.
So after he saw. Okay, so after he saw all these people worshiping a different deity, he took both of the plates with the 10 Commandments on them and shattered them. Much like the one in the Mel Brooks clip that we played earlier.
Yeah. This is something I am familiar with, because this leads us to the Ark of the Covenant, which is what was built to house these, which leads us to to Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I know this part, and how they would have it at the front of armies, because it was such supernatural force that would bring destruction. Oh, such good shit. This is when the Bible gets metal.
Yeah, and as punishment for worshiping a different deity, God decreed that the people who just left Egypt will not be allowed to enter the land of Canaan, as it was known at the time. He then forced Moses to walk them around aimlessly for 40 years in the desert, allowing for the previous generations who were born, raised, and grew up in the kingdom of Egypt as slaves to die out of old age, giving rise to a new generation, a supposedly untainted generation, to lead the Israelites into a new and brighter future. Somewhere along the way, the people of the Israelites, or the Hebrews, became hungry. So God literally made it rain food during the night, which was used to feed the hungry masses, and they kept some of it for the rest of their journey. And also during their journey, their water supply became very low. So they walked up across a giant boulder. God told Moses to talk to the boulder, and the boulder will provide water for them. And Moses, after all God has done to him, all throughout from the burning bush all the way to opening the parting the Red Sea, to literally raining down food from the sky, Moses refused to believe that talking to a boulder will provide him with water. So he just struck the boulder, broken in half, and water came out of it. This of course made God very angry because he doesn't like when the people disobey him. So he decreed that while Moses will lead his people to the land of Canaan, he will never actually get to walk in it.
So that was my next question, because I remember that, but I didn't remember why. But that's good to know. It's because he disobeyed God and broke the rock instead of talked to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So while he led the people, the Israelites, the Hebrews, to the land of Canaan, he never got to go inside it. He only got to see it and admire it from afar before passing away.
God is a dick.
Yeah, I know. I think you mean Jehovah's a dick.
Jehovah, Jehovah, Jehovah! I'm warning you, if you say Jehovah once more, right, who's through that?
But I mean, I think it goes without saying all gods are dicks, right?
That's true.
Yeah. No matter the mythology.
Yeah.
In any case, so that is basically the biblical / historical story of Passover. Now we're going to transition this into something quite different.
Okay, just keep in mind, though, I have to meet my dad in 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short. Basically, so this is how we celebrate the holiday of Passover today. We have a big, massive feast with all the family called a Seder. Seder literally is the Hebrew word for order, the night of the order, where we have order in our feast. Now, in the feast, it is common tradition to put ourselves through, in a way, what the people of Israel suffered for in the land of Egypt, so we ourselves could appreciate the suffering of the people back in the day and the liberation from enslavement to liberty. We have this Seder plate, as you can see here, with 6 ingredients on it. Charoset, which is essentially a sort of a jam made from apples or almonds or dates.
What is that? Is that the pink one?
Nope, it's the one on the right above the 2 yellow things. And speaking of which, the 2 yellow things are potatoes.
Yeah, I knew that. I recognized potatoes and eggs and obviously the matzah bread.
Yeah. Well, technically the matzah is not really part of the thing. It's just signifying that it's Passover. But yeah, it's the charoset.
Don't you?
What?
You take it away from me, why don't you? I'm kidding.
Fine. I mean, you're the one who has to harder in 15 minutes. If you keep interrupting me.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. So yeah, the charoset, the potatoes, eggs, a arm, which essentially, as you can see here, is represented by the wing of a chicken, a maror, which traditionally is a type of herb, usually represented by either a stick of celery or lettuce or cabbage, and the pink one that you mentioned earlier is essentially it's radish. It's radish.
I know radish.
During the Seder, it's also a common custom to sing several songs, drink from 4 wine cups, as you can see here, and ask for questions. This is particularly for the young ones. And here's another tradition that, for the life of me, I have no idea why is it even a thing. What does this even have to do with Passover? But it is common tradition to leave a big glass of wine out on the table and leave the door open for Elijah the prophet to come down, to descend back down to earth, walk into your home and drink from the goblet of wine and walk back out. I have no idea what does that have to do with the story of Moses, but I digress.
Sounds like Santa.
Yeah, what?
Sounds like Santa.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Maybe it's something that the Jews picked up from Santa Claus. Maybe Christians picked up the story of Santa Claus from that. I don't know. What does that have to do with Moses? I will never understand, but it's a thing. Okay, people still do that till this very day. Now, the other main thing that is common custom in the Seder is to sing various songs. The first of these songs obviously is Simcha Rabba, meaning great happiness, which the lyrics literally mean great happiness, the spring is here, Passover has come. Pretty sure I said that backwards, but never mind. You say that twice, and then you just the lyrics basically go on to talk about how you sewed pockets on your clothes and filled those pockets with nuts. It's been so long now I've forgotten what the nuts even mean, but it talks about asking the 4 questions, drinking the 4 cups, as I mentioned earlier, and the cup left for Elijah the prophet, and that is basically the main lyrics of the first song. Now, the other song is Echad mi yodea, one who knows, where we basically ask 1 who knows, and then 2 who knows, and then 3 who knows, and basically go down a certain list of things that basically is represented by the song. It's basically, think of it as like the 12 days of Christmas. On the first day of Christmas, the second day of Christmas, and so on and so forth. Now, we're going to skip all the way to 13, so we don't have to sing the whole song. So I even have a picture of it right here. These are the 13 things represented in the song itself. The 13th thing is 13 midaya, which basically means measurements. For the life of me, I have no idea what that means till this very day. I don't think anyone knows what it means. But yeah, the 12 is Shivtaya, meaning for the 12 tribes of Israel. The 11 is Kochvaya, basically meaning 11 stars, which basically it's the nine planets in our solar system plus the sun and the moon, which makes 11, apparently. The 10th is Dibraya, which means the 10 commandments. 9 is the 9 months of pregnancy. The 8 is the 8 days you have to wait before circumcision after a baby is born. The 7th is the 7 days of the week. The 6th is 7 minor books that are part of the Bible. The 5th is the 5 main books of the Torah. The 4th is the 4 mothers that we mentioned previously in the story. The 3rd is the 3 fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The 2nd, 2, is the 2 plates containing the 10 commandments, and 1, God. Obviously, if that wasn't obvious enough.
Yeah.
The other main song we sing is Manishtana, what has changed. Basically, we're saying what has changed this night of all the other nights. And you basically go on to say that we do not eat regular bread products. We only eat matzahs and matzah made products. We on this night, as opposed to all the other nights, we eat the maror, the bitter herbs that I mentioned earlier in the Seder plate. We dip. On this night, more than any other time, we dip twice. No idea what that ever meant. And basically some more table manners. I'm just going to really run through this. And another one of the songs is A Tale of Four Brothers. Again, no idea what that has to do with Passover, but apparently one of the main songs that's part of the Haggadah, the legend of Passover, and the main text that we say is a tale that speaks of 4 brothers, a wise man, a naive/innocent man, a evil man, and a man who does not know how to ask. Don't ask me how that works. But yeah, they start walking together along the road, giving blessings, and then they eventually meet 4 women. A wise woman, a evil woman, a naive woman, and the man who does not know how to ask takes the woman who takes the beautiful of them all, the fairest of them all, and then all of them go back into the Haggadah itself. And the final song, which, full disclosure, I have only listened to for the first time yesterday. I'm 14 years old. I've celebrated this holiday my whole life. I never once heard that song start to finish all the way through, but it's called Had Gadya, which basically is a story about a father bringing a lamb to the house, and then gets eaten by a cat, which is then bitten by a dog, which is then slapped by a stick, which is then burned by the fire, which then is get put out by the water, which is then drunk by a bull, which is then slaughtered by the butcher, who is then killed by the angel of death.
Oh, wow.
No idea what that song has to do with Passover, but you know what? It is what it is. Now, obviously, the final thing I want to go over is that all over and all around, we have to, as I mentioned, get rid of all the bread products, anything that even remotely resembles bread in any way, or rather anything that resembles chametz, basically meaning pastry products that take time to bake, which I have learned today, not 5 minutes before starting this show, that in English, the English name for it is leaven. Have you heard of leaven?
Yeah, I've heard of leaven bread before. Yeah, I've heard the term before.
Yeah, so that was the first for me, so that's why I played that clip. Anyway, so yeah, you get rid of all the leaven. We basically clean up the whole house from everything that even resembles leaven, which I'm assuming is where the tradition of spring cleaning came from. You had to clean up the house, get everything in order for the Seder, get rid of any leaven or bread products. Even in restaurants, you got to take all the pots and bakery and all the tools and boil them in hot water for several hours. I think maybe overnight. I think I never done it, obviously, because why should I? But that's basically more or less how you get rid of all the leaven products in your house. The leaven. Okay, so any further questions, Mr.
None whatsoever.
So happy Passover to you.
Happy Passover to you as well.
And now I pass this over to you. What is your topic for the next show?
Okay, so we are recording this on Easter Sunday, which is April 9th, and my topic is actually involves something that happens after April 12th, 1914. So this has to do with the story of the Titanic, but this is the Canadian aspect of the Titanic. This is about the crew of the McKay Bennett who went and had to retrieve the bodies. It was a Canadian freighter that would retrieve the bodies. All the bodies were on display in Canada. Canada actually has a very important place in the history of the Titanic. So I'm going to touch on that little part of it.
Okay, cool. So while you're getting ready to do that, where can the people of the interwebs find you this Easter time?
Normally, you can find me on my personal Instagram and Twitter at soda_the_Statsman. You can find me here in the Northern Entertainment Group doing all sorts of shenanigans with 50. You can find me occasionally doing live streams of Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown over in the Hotel Network. And immediately following this, you can see me doing the Flight of the Bumblebees to get dressed and go meet my dad for lunch. Which, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to hop off and do now. Do you mind signing off for me?
Leave that to me.
All right, man. Take care, everybody. We will see you next week when I talk about Titanic stuff. Bye.
All right. And as for me, you can find me on my own YouTube channel, 50 Shades of Geek. You can also find me on this channel potentially every Thursday on Fun with Flags, and again, potentially every Monday on The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, talking about The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, Doctor Who. And yeah, speaking of Doctor Who, speaking of my channel, I also do Doctor Who reviews all the way from 1963, every episode from 1963 all the way up to 2022. And I also did a couple of trailer reactions fairly recently that dropped last week. So go ahead and check those out. And until the next episode of this show, whenever that may air, happy Passover, happy Easter, and Ramadan Kareem. Happy holidays, everyone.